Hello and welcome to Lunch and Learn today, everybody. I'm gonna just give it a few minutes for people to uh jump in and then we can get started here. And then we'll talk about what we're gonna be doing today. Welcome to Lunch and Learn today. All right. All right. Hi everybody. I'm Jeremy. I'll be leading our call today. I'm a little bit under the weather, so apologies if I uh don't catch myself in mute before I have to cough or something into my microphone. I'll try to mute myself beforehand just to save you all the loud noises. But anyway, welcome to Lunch and Learn. I am going to be leading our call today. Let me just go over a couple quick things, and then we can leave it open for any questions. So if anyone has any questions, thoughts, curiosities, please type them up in the Q&A, and I'd be happy to take a look. Um, but without further ado, we got check out our YouTube channel if you're curious. We post our videos up there. Lots of great things if anyone's curious about things upcoming, things coming up in decisions, things just interesting topics. Sometimes requests, all of our lunch and learns, all that stuff up there. Check out the Solutions Marketplace. Great place for finding applications that you can install into your decisions instance if you're curious about how some things might work, if you have a process that you might want to utilize, or just get inspiration from. You can install these different applications and see if any of them are, of interest to you. So definitely take a scroll through those various applications and accelerators and things that we have in there. And then decisions.com/events. Anywhere if you're looking for upcoming events and things in decisions, great place for if you're looking for anything like that. At the moment, all that's up there is the product roadmap review. So bi-weekly webinars for learning about what's upcoming in the product and a lot of really cool things like that. So you can definitely check that out. But I know we have a submerse that will eventually be planned for the upcoming quarter and things like that. Those videos will be, or videos, those links to those events will be up there too once those are getting a little bit closer and ready. So yeah. Um, Only other things, we do have a reminder that we have a special guest on Thursday again. So last week we had Kirsten talking about like the Flex view, and a couple other of the 9.11 updates that we recently had and things. And that seemed to have some good amount of people watching and asking questions. And we'll be doing another one. So we'll have another member of the product management team, Josh Lax, who will be joining us and talking about our AI roadmap. So if you're curious about AI and the future of that in decisions, he will be here on Thursday leading our lunch and learn to talk about those concepts. So if you're curious, definitely join us for that. So that's this Thursday. Let me switch over to decisions. But again, if we have questions, feel free to ask away. I'd be happy to discuss. All right. Seeing questions, but I guess I can kind of just take a look at some. We've kind of been showing this stuff off already, but I don't have anything kind of crazy to talk about here. I actually only recently downloaded 9.11, so I'm excited to get used to some of the new designs with all the different colors and um, designing of the new steps and stuff and decisions. I'm super excited about this. I like the unique colors. I like when they stand out. Um, and I like the form stuff. That's definitely not form stuff, sorry, like the grid for keeping everything locked. I don't know about everyone else, but I am definitely one of the people that was always like very particular about making sure that everything was lined up in decisions. And so having to do that was definitely frustrating sometimes. So I'm super excited to have um, to have that in decisions. So yeah, with this new refresh, there's a lot of all of our steps, they're color coordinated, and that looks really cool. And the like sizes and everything is pretty like consistent now too, which I know rule being a little bit of an exception just because they're quite a bit of a different shape. But all these other entities now with like the same size, so everything can actually look more consistent and and the way that they're designed right away, I think it looks really, really nice. Um, I see quite a few people have joined as well. Hello, everybody. If you have any questions, please post them in the Q&A. I currently don't have anything, so I can talk on whatever we need to discuss. I'm just kind of taking a look at some of the new differences in our 9.11 update with how the flow designer was overhauled to look a little bit different and have the grid and have these steps look pretty unique with the color coordination and everything like that. If you have not seen also, um, the way that they connect to each other is also really cool. So they can actually, if I connect multiple steps to the same, even just the same side of a step, they kind of like link in together and they keep things separated very, very well instead of all blending into the same side like they would in the previous version. So if you have multiple steps going into the same step, you don't have to be extra careful about making sure that they're all going in at different sides of the step sometimes as much anymore. Um, Obviously, this is a bad example. You wouldn't want to add this many steps going into a step like that, but definitely something really cool about this 9.11 update, and the way that it can be organized to actually send things through. Because I know there's a lot of times where I would have situations that, it was nicer when I could, when I had, you had to have them loop through or connect to different sides of steps like this to make them look a little bit nicer. So that's really cool. I know that when Gregory talks about this, he usually uses the string match step. I think that's a better example to show like a real case where I might have a bunch of things that would have, depending on different strings, you have a whole bunch of different pathways, and now I can have them all go into the same exact location, and it does not change how they look. They kind of all are able to go into the same spot, so that's pretty cool. Um, Although 6, 7 lines is still a little bit messy, but yeah, that's a really neat feature on the most recent updates. So pretty cool. They all look nice. I know on the forums there's some cool stuff in 9.11 as well. If you haven't seen this yet, uh, when I drag in a new form control, the labels are now actually attached to the forms. So when I want to make this like my number box label, first of all, it highlights or copies the label for me already. But now instead of having to shift enter and put the label with it, the label is automatically included. If I don't want the label, I could delete it and then I won't have the label there. I could hit enter and put the label above it. Shift enter will put the label to the left of it. So definitely some pretty cool stuff. We highlighted this on our recent lunch and learn as well. So I'm just kind of taking a look at it because I hadn't had a chance to actually upgrade my decisions until today. I don't want to spend or waste everyone's time here if we're not going to have any questions. So if we don't have anything, oh, and literally just as I said that, we get some new questions. So never mind. I will let's take a look. And if we have new questions, please post them in the Q&A and I'll be happy to discuss. I just want to talk about decisions and share with whatever we can. So let me read. We have a question from James. I'll let you talk in case you have anything to add, but I'll read your question out loud and we can discuss these things. So a few questions. Just upgraded our development instance to version 9 and can't find the compile all code buckets anywhere. It should be in the normal area on the right click menu, but is not present. Have you seen this before? Was there something we need to turn on? You're talking about like, is it just it was just a right click action on
Yeah,
like an
you right click a
any
designer
entity,
folder,
just on any designer folder.
and you don't have it either. Huh.
It was in version 8 on designer folders.
Yeah, and then on the version 9 documentation, it says it's still there. Let me see if I can find it.
Which action?
Compile all code buckets.
Oh, I'm not sure.
Yeah, I'm trying to look at something here.
I put the link to the doc page and the questions.
Sure, yeah, let me,
Probably should put in chat.
okay, so you're talking about like this, right? If I right click a project,
Mhm.
recompile this. Yeah. I think we moved. I know there's some stuff in data structures. So, and maybe we just haven't updated on our docs site. We can definitely take a look at that. Um, and I'll have a doc team member take a look. But you can definitely do it in if you go to manage and then under health, there's a data structures tab that just shows all the data structures in the project. So you can see here all my data structures, and I can even look at the entities inside them. But there's a recompiled data structures action at the top of this menu. That's doing what you were looking at. The main difference being since in version 9, all the data structures are on the project level so that they don't have to recompile every data structure on the system whenever you want to recompile. You can only, like, you can do it on the project level. So it's in the management section in here. So maybe it might have just been that it was on in initially or like early on in some of the version 9 uh stuff. It was on the right click action. I think we moved it. I can't remember exactly when we did, but I believe we just it got moved to a different location. Um and that so that but that's this is where it is now. So it within your project, manage health data structures. You can recompile your data structures. You would have
Okay,
to
cool.
do it at like each project if you're trying to like recompile multiple projects, because it's project level focused.
So before it would actually recompile all the systems data structures.
Yes. In version 8, it would, if you recompiled them, it would recompile every structure and the entire system. It usually applied more in like cases where maybe you had a bad data structure. Sometimes recompiling them, it may block certain data structures from recompiling. Now it's a little bit less likely for that to happen since it's on the project level. So now if I recompile this, it'll only recompile in my lunch and learn project. So if I had like, if my show more example case structure was broken or, bad for some reason, it wasn't compiling right, causing some kind of error, then it might only stop these projects or these structures from loading if it got in the way of them, but it shouldn't affect any of my other projects. That's like I guess the positive of the kind of project structure and recompiling. But yeah, it should just be under the data structures if I wanted to recompile them.
Sorry, it was like a three-parter question.
Yep. Yeah,
But that makes
I
sense. Thank you for
want
that
to make sure you're
explanation.
good on that part before I move on
Yeah,
to the next one.
thank you.
Okay, cool. Next question. Looks like templates work differently in V9. Are these now project specific? Are you referring to like flow form templates or like step
Yes.
templates? Flow
Flow
templates?
step templates.
Got it. So if I like went into a flow and I made some steps into a template, that's what you're talking about.
Mhm.
Okay. I actually don't know. I don't think I've actually used. Let's just make a little for each pop-up loop. Let's say I want this to be a template. I'm going to group it. I'm going to say this is template. Um, I guess it would make sense. It would be project specific, but so I can find my show pop-up loop template here. If I go to another project, yeah, it's definitely project specific. Um, So if you don't want them to be project specific, then this is what we suggest for something like that is make a project that you can kind of call as like your make it like a global entities project, some kind of uh like global project that you if you want to make for other projects to share things with, and you can
Mhm.
build anything in this project. So this is where you would build your those templates or like create have those templates created in. And then on your other projects, what you can do is you can go to configurations and dependencies, and then you could make your project dependent on your global project. And then that will allow this project. So you can see actually I have this one already dependent on my global entities project. And so now anything that's built in global entities, I have access to in this project. So if I do want something to be accessed across multiple projects, it's typically better to create one project that has all of those shared entities, and then you can make anything dependent on it. So then you can actually grab things from that shared project.
That makes sense. Thank you.
Mhm. And then queries. Are these now project specific too? Can you move to project on multiple projects?
So I mean,
I
like
think
from the settings integrations, like because that's where we have all our
yes.
queries.
Yeah, so anything you're building in here is project specific. So things like external services, if I'm adding like REST service or something that's on this project. If I have, like database connections, like all of these things, they're on this project and this project only. Like I have AI modules here, so I've made like AI prompts and things like that. And again, all of these in the same way are only on this project. So if
Mhm.
I am building out something like this to connect with that is on the anything that's on the project level is going to be project level only. Uh, so yeah, like you're setting up like your integrations, like you're talking about. Anything that I have to set in this integrations menu is all going to be project specific. You can set some things up. Some things are still able to be set up on the system level. If you're trying to set things up, those can be,
Mhm.
like not, they don't have to be project specific. So certain things like that you can set up. So, like a
Yeah, that's how we
specific
have most of ours
service and
set
stuff.
up is like right through there through
Hmm.
databases and then queries underneath those.
Hmm.
But I see in the issues, it's like complaining at me for it not being part of the project.
Yes. And I think the problem with if you have like certain connections and things like that is like we're kind of shifting to trying to have as much as possible on the project level for certain things. Um, for that reason because things like if I were to push something into my repository and this isn't built in that project, then you may potentially have some issues because of the way that we were trying to like be able to send things to the repository. Like if this is not attached to my project in some way, like whereas anything inside of my project, these like this external database connection is connected directly to my project. When I push it to the repository, it helps keep that together and organized in that way and make sure that the database connection and everything is also going through. So there's some levels of that that would be missing um, on the system level. And I think they are trying to like remove some of these things so that they're only available on the project level.
Mhm.
And in some cases, you may actually only be able to do like certain actions um, to things on the project level because, you know, if I'm trying to make some certain connections or some things have access to like a data structure, if I'm on the system, I'm not going to have access to my project level data structures. Like, especially things like a REST service, for example, like you can make this REST service method um, uh, output as a specific data type. Like I have on this example, actually, I have it outputting as a specific data type. I would not be able to do this if was making this on the system level anymore because I don't have access to this data type. I would have to output this as raw data and then use deserialized steps to do that. Whereas this, I'm able to do it directly. So anything that is trying to like set up or utilize data that's within my project, I don't have access to that on the system level. Um, so that's like one thing you might have to be a little bit careful of, and maybe that's why you're experiencing some issues if you do. So you're probably better off building them in the project, or like if you can move them, then you can move them into the project. I know in a lot of cases, the upgrade ones do still link with the projects, with the way that we have the ability to upgrade and then convert like a version 8 project to a version 9 project. Most of those things should have been able to shift, but I'm not 100% sure about how accurate all of that stuff is.
Okay, thank you.
Mhm. Jeremy saying not seeing flow step templates are available from a dependent project. Interesting. Let me take a quick look at that. Save it. So I have some test template here. Save that. And I know my lunch and learn project is dependent on that project, so I should see this if I open it up. Okay, interesting. Maybe templates are not available on. Good catch. Maybe they're not available. I wonder why, or if that's even supposed to be that way. Hmm. All right, that might be a question I'd have to ask and try to see if there's a reason for that, or if that's an oversight, something for a ticket. Good catch. Thank you for noticing that and checking on that. I would have expected to see those in a dependent project, but I'm surprised they're not. Place that you can find templates. I don't know. I know they're here. I wonder why they wouldn't be available on another project though. Maybe it's because they're in here and not just on flows. Maybe it's only certain designer elements. Okay, I'll have to ask about that and see why that is. That's very interesting. Good catch. Thank you for noticing that. All right. So I guess then for back to that your question about templates, at least for now, until I can figure out more information, or and maybe if that's something that they need to add or fix in a future update. For templates, I guess you have to make your templates in in the project that you want, and then you may have to make them in multiple projects or duplicate them in multiple projects if you need to. I do know that you can't like copy and paste things across projects, so I don't think you'd be able to do that either. You might just have to kind of manually create the steps a few times if you're trying to do them uh, in other projects. Okay. All right, we got another question from Jonah, so I'm going to go ahead and read this off, and then we can talk about it. So, question is, we're trying to run a flow from a form and display the results on the same form. Can you demo how to wire up a form that has an input box and a search button on it? Search should return 0 or 1 objects. If 1 object is found, go back to the form and display the details of the object in the lower half of the form. The goal is to update object attributes on the form and either save or cancel. Okay, sure. Oops, that's not what I wanted to create. Let's see. Okay. I have you unmuted so you can speak if you'd like to add anything here. But so your idea is like a user is like searching something and it's changing what's appearing down here on the form.
Exactly.
Okay. For what they're doing, is it like an open text box? Is it like
Yes.
choosing a
Yeah.
selection? Okay.
Basically, you're looking for a user account. So if you want to search by name or email, then bring back the account attributes.
Got it. And then what are you having it display on at the
For
bottom?
the demo, it could just display a name. If you're looking by
Okay.
their employee ID and you display their name would be great.
Okay. Cool. Just something happened now then. Okay. Yeah, so the main way you're doing this is building some kind of active form flow. And depending on how you're working through this on the form, it may change like or where the data is coming from, what they can search for, and things like that. It may affect some of the options here. But yeah, so if you're searching for something, you would have some kind of active form flow to build on here, with your trigger being any kind of changed value in the search term. If they are trying to search for something, you may even use stop typing to like give them a chance to finish typing. I think there's like at least a slight delay on this if they're like trying to type out like a whole value or something. Um, Value change will be if they're typing like 10 characters or something, it's going to run it each time they type a character. But
Mm.
but if they're just typing, or maybe copy and paste would probably be fine too. But yeah, if they're like manually typing this out, stop typing is probably a little bit better, so it's not trying to rerun this every single time since they're able to type in the text box. But anyway, so we create this. We're gonna create this. That's probably the main trigger you'll focus on. You could also have it run at startup if there's a way to like pass in the search term from the start, if you want that as well. But then inside here is where you're going to be building out the actual like process to get the data. Um, to take something and then place it into an actual form control, you'll see a number of form rules available. There's a whole tab for it. These are specific form rules, things that can be used in active form flows, and things to actually like adjust different items on the form. The really basic one though for actually placing values is set control value. Uh, and set control value is going to be where I get to pick an actual control. So then I might say, like, I need to fill out from my form data that name displayed text box where I want the like result to come from, and I would place that value in here. And then from here, I can actually say, okay, now where do I want this name display to come from? So then that's what I would need to place in here first. Uh, from there, I'd have to decide like where's my data coming from? How am I getting that, the data in there?
Mhm.
Where is your data like in like a database or something?
Yeah, it would be like a REST API call,
Okay.
calling graph.
Okay. So yeah, because like I can see it coming, I can see you building this in like a number of different ways. Like obviously if depending on what you're grabbing, you could use like if it's in like a database or something, you could fetch entities. If you're saying it's like coming from a
Mhm.
REST call or something, you could obviously grab that. Like I'm just gonna say, let's say I want to fetch the accounts and decisions just to demonstrate how I might set this up. Um, uh, in here, but I might say like, okay, so here I'm going to grab uh, my accounts and decisions, and then I can also have fetch criteria. So this is where like the fetch step I think would be actually really easy to do this with. But obviously, if you have some kind of call here, you could adjust the data on the call, or maybe you could have a filter step. Like we have, there's a filter steps that can take in like a list of data. If you have your data outputting something, you can filter that list with information if you want, and whatever it's coming from. So you could do that, but you can adjust the filter according to what that person typed in. So, I might say, whatever they're typing in, like the ID. I don't know if I actually have any IDs in my accounts and decisions. So I don't want that though. Well, I'll use email as my example, but obviously you would want this to come in as like an ID or something like that. Here, uh, to match like the ID or whatever that field is that the user is going to be searching by. And then you could use equals or maybe even contains if you want it to be like some kind of partial. Equals would mean I would have to have it like fully written out. Contains might be like an okay option here because then it can make it like contain some value. And then the input for what that actual filtering is on my fetch is going to come from my form data, what they're typing in, and the actual value that they're typing in that text box search term.
Gotcha.
So then I'd be able to change that value, whatever they're typing in, and then the results is going to come in from, oops, not constant. The result is going to come into the name that gets displayed on my set control value step. So then I would grab that from my entity results. Now this is coming in as a list, so I'd have to pick like the first person from the
Yep.
list, but I could say like first, and I'll use first name for this example. Obviously you can make that, email address or whatever. There. And grab that. So then it should place that value as the name in that text box if it finds one. So
So
then,
Jeremy, right here,
yeah,
do you recommend using like an event off of the search term text box, or do you see your users creating forms that have a button trigger instead?
yeah, that's actually is another good option, especially if you don't like here. Obviously, my trigger is kind of the way I've started this. It's kind of forced to be based off of when they type it. But if I do want
Mhm.
it to be triggered on a button, I can do that instead, and have an event button here, and call this like search.
Gotcha.
Right? So then they just do all the typing first, and then the event button can be the trigger for the active form flow. And so now instead of basing it off of whatever they type in here, it can just be on clicking that button. And so now it's just they'll type in whatever they want, click search, and then it should populate in the box.
Gotcha. Okay.
And then
Good
I
info.
can even just demo that real quick since I've finished creating it. If I place this in a flow, and I grab my show form step, just pick my form, and then run it. Now I can search and hit search, and it'll grab the first name. Obviously, it's
Beautiful.
looking for an email. So if I did want to type in the full email, right, I could search for like the full account, full email, full ID, whatever. Hit
Yep.
search, and it'll populate my name with the first name attached to that account or the user attached to the ID or whatever.
Beautiful. Excellent. Thank you so much.
Yep, of course, no problem. All right. That is all the questions I had queued up. Any additional questions? I'll give it a minute if anyone needs to type something, or you can, raise your hand or whatever. I don't want to jump to closing if anyone else has any other questions. If not, we can end a little bit early. Okay, I'm not seeing anything, so we can go ahead and end our lunch and learn a little bit early for today. Switch back to my presentation screen. So thank you all for joining. We appreciate all the questions and happy to continue helping. Gregory will be leading our call tomorrow. And then again, as a reminder, we have our special guest, Josh Lax from the product team, who will be providing a bunch of details about our AI roadmap and things that we're doing with AI coming up in decisions. So if you're curious about that, you can join Lunch and Learn on Thursday, and Josh will be able to answer questions and showcase a lot of cool stuff with that. So without further ado, though, we'll go ahead and end our call for today. Thank you all for joining, and I hope you all have a great rest of your day. See you tomorrow.